Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. Only 4 games on this slate. Also, if you notice, the background is different. I'm visiting home for a few weeks while the holidays roll around, so this is going to be the background for the next few videos. But today we're going to talk about 4 games, one of which featured the grand return of Ja Morant. The 25-game suspension is over. He's back for the Grizzlies, and they desperately need him. They did not hold their own in the absence of him. They did get enough wins to at least keep themselves competitive. There is still a possibility they can make the play-in, but they're going to need a lot of W's fast. They need Ja Morant from the get-go to be the Ja that we're used to. And I'll say in his first game, it looked like Ja Morant didn't miss a step. So let's go ahead and talk about his debut, how that game went, and a few other pretty good games on this slate. Saw a lot of upsets. Should be a fun one. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And as always, would love to hear your takeaways down below in the comments. So let's go ahead and kick things off with Pelicans versus Grizzlies. NBA, of course, put this one on national TV. It's Zion versus Ja Morant, top 2 picks in their draft. The return of Ja Morant, 2 teams that could theoretically both be in the Western Conference playoffs. And the game was disgusting to start off. There was all this hype I had surrounding the return of Ja, and neither team could seemingly score the basketball. Ja gets his first points at the free throw line. They were battling back and forth, but mainly in the second quarters when things picked up, primarily for the Pelicans. They ended up dominating the second quarter, winning 39-16 in that period, and they were winning it like 34-8 or something like that earlier on. The Grizzlies made a bit of a run. They got some buckets, but really going into halftime, it seemed like the Pelicans were gaining control of the game. However, in the second half, they started to pick up a bit of steam, and it looked a lot more like the Grizzlies we saw last year, mainly because Ja Morant. He was slow in the first half, kind of getting his feet wet, getting his legs under him, but it seemed like in the second half, he was like, oh, yeah, I'm Ja Morant. I'm one of the best players in the world. I'm going to go out there and dominate. And he did exactly that. In the second half, Ja Morant drops 27 points on 9 of 16 shooting with 5 boards, 5 dimes, and 2 steals. He was completely unstoppable. 14 of those points also come in the fourth quarter, with Jaren Jackson also dropping 14 points as they continued to chip away more and more at that Pelicans lead. They got it close. The Pelicans would hit a bucket. They would get it closer. They just had to keep knocking on that door, and eventually they burst it wide open. Ja just was relentless. It didn't matter if it was Herb Jones, one of the league's best perimeter defenders, in front of him, or anybody else. They could send 2, 3 guys. Ja was going to find his way to the basket. He was going to hit that little floater that he likes to, that little push shot. He was going to just blow right past you to the rim, or he was going to dime up one of his teammates. His rim pressure changes everything for this Grizzlies team. It just opens the game up so much, whether it's in transition, in the half court. All the people that tried to say that the Grizzlies were better without Ja Morant for years, I hope they've watched the Grizzlies in this first 25-game period this season, and they watched them last night and continue to watch them, because that narrative that Ja made his team worse, or the Grizzlies were better without him, was just never true. They were just deeper than they were now, so they're able to hold their own, and you can clearly see everything changes with Ja Morant. In that second half when he turned up, it didn't look like a guy who missed 25 games. It looked like a guy that just played an 82-game season or rested a few games here and there leading up to the playoffs and was in peak playoff form. It was one of the best games I've seen from Ja Morant in a while, obviously because he got suspended, but just in general, he controlled everything in that second half. And everything came to a climax with 13 seconds left. Leading up to that point, the game got tied. I believe Ja Morant missed a step back 3 on one end, and then CJ McCollum, who was on fire from deep the entire night, ends up missing on the other. Grizzlies get the rebound, 13 seconds left, call timeout. They just got to go ahead and drop one play to go ahead and get the win on the road. And according to Ja and Desmond Bane afterwards, Ja Morant said, hey, do we want to drop a post up for Jaren Jackson Jr.? Desmond Bane said literally, hell no, we're going to get you the ball. I think everybody knew Ja Morant was going to get the ball. There was no one else they're going to go to. He's their best player. And this was such a storybook moment. Like, this felt like a sports movie where the guy makes his return. He's got a chance to go ahead and hit the game winner in his first game back. It just felt like there was no other way this game was going to end at that point than a Ja Morant game winner. And you know what? That's exactly how it ended. Ja Morant ends up getting past Herb Jones, hits this spin move instead of falling through the spin, though, like steps the other way. It was a crazy athletic play. Hits a shot over 2 guys, makes Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels, I believe, high five. Basket goes in. Grizzlies win. Buzzer goes off. Yeah, Grizzlies get a W on the road against a really good New Orleans Pelicans team in Ja's first game back. He was unbelievable. Finishes with a 34.6 rebound, 8 assist stat line, 2 steals as well. 50% shooting, went 0-5 from deep. Couldn't seem to buy a 3 in this one, but everything else was going, and he really doesn't need that to be effective. He was unbelievable. Looked like one of the best guards in the world, which he 100% is. And to be honest, I kind of forgot how fun it was to watch Ja Morant play. I've watched him for years at this point, watched a ton of Grizzlies ball, of course, with them being one of the best teams in the Western Conference and him being at the center of that. But unless you're actually actively watching him play basketball, it's hard to just comprehend how special of a talent he is. The athleticism, the playmaking, the overall impact on the game for this Grizzlies team, easily their most watchable game of the season. It's not even close. He is right up there with the best young guards in the league. We talk about guys like, Shea and Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, of course, just in the Western Conference, De'Aaron Fox. Ja is right up there with those guys. He is an unbelievably special talent, and it's just so good to see him back out there. I feel like this is probably the beginning of a really, really good season for him. It feels like he has something to prove out there. He's going to do his best to will this Grizzlies team to the playoffs in a very stacked Western Conference. It's going to be hard. Like, there are 10, 11 teams, and now 12 of the Grizzlies that all feel like they can absolutely make it into the play and make it into the playoffs. They've got a tough road ahead of them. They've got to make up a lot of ground, get wins consistently. They're also still dealing with a lot of injuries. Steven Adams out for the season. They're getting some of their other role players back. I think Brandon Clark is supposed to come back around the All-Star break. So it's certainly an uphill battle. They've got to find a way. But hey, with how Ja was playing out there, how the Grizzlies looked around him, they might have the chance to do so. I will say the minutes without Ja Morant on the court were kind of abysmal. Like when Ja wasn't out there, it was kind of a disaster. But they're also waiting on Marcus Smart to come back. And I think once they have him in there as that playmaker, extra guard alongside Ja, back and forth between those guys as ball handlers, I think this team will look a lot more cohesive. So they've still got to get their health together. They've still got to get the full team on the court. But with Ja Morant back, they looked way better. I'm expecting big, big things from Ja Morant. I think he's going to go on a revenge tour, say, hey, y'all forgot about me as one of the best guards in the world, one of the best players in the world. It's going to be a really fun season to watch. I don't know if he can make an All-Star game at this point because he missed the first 25 games. It's probably too late. But, it's not really going to matter for him with the individual awards. Just try and get the Grizzlies to the playoffs. And hey, if they get a bit more health, if they make it in the playoffs as like a 7 or an 8 seed, that's a super dangerous team to have to try and face off against in a 1-8, 2-7 matchup. They could really play spoiler in that first round, or at the very least, give one of those top teams a really, really scary series, way harder than they were bargaining for, which is part of the reason I love the play-in so much. You can have a team like the Grizzlies who are missing their star player and dealt with so many injuries, but they can still find a way into the playoffs and make it really interesting when they get there. Really excited to see how the Grizzlies play the rest of the year. Interested to see if they make more moves to bolster the roster around Ja Morant. But hey, with Ja Morant back, at the very least, they've got a chance, and he is still one of the best players in the league. Don't forget about him. On the Pelicans side of things, there was just no defensive resistance at all, especially in the second half. Brandon Ingram finished with 34 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals on 61% shooting. He was really good. I can't ask too much more from him. Still kind of have a problem with Zion Williamson in this one. He was unaggressive. 13 points, 3 boards, 4 assists, just didn't shoot too much. It was annoying. Like, it feels like Zion should be making a big impact. I know they have Jaren down there who's a depoy type player, but this is a Grizzlies team that doesn't have a lot of resistance for a guy like Zion outside of Triple J. This feels like a game that he should dominate, or at least be aggressive and try and get to the free throw line. Just try and take control of some kind, and he really didn't. Like, Zion's still really good. I just wish he was a lot more aggressive at times. It was just generally a tale of two teams in this game as well. The first half, they looked dominant, like the Pelicans we've seen a lot recently, and in the second half, they kind of just disappeared, fell victim to the pressure, and ended up losing. It's kind of a story of their season where some games they look unbelievable, and some games you're wondering what happened. Let's go ahead and move on now to the other TNT game of the night, which is Celtics versus Warriors. Every time these two teams play, it feels like a fantastic game. Now, at the beginning of it, it didn't feel like that. The Celtics went up by as much as 17 points. They were kind of dominating. And then the Warriors slowly chipped away at this. They were at home. They had the crowd going a little bit. And one of the big things I think helped the Warriors a lot in this game was that they actually played the youth. Steve Kerr, credit to him, I feel like he's had a really rough coaching season so far, has actually committed to playing guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, Trace Jackson Davis, who was so good in this game all throughout, had 10 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, 5 of 7 shooting, and was a plus 25 in his minutes. I don't know why he hasn't played up to this point. I feel like he looked really good in the minutes that he played spotly. He just felt like a good fit when they drafted him. A young, athletic big who can knock down some shots here and there, who can block shots. They need this type of energy on this team. Their veterans were not getting it done. They put in the young guys, and it was huge. And the Warriors end up coming back, sending this game to overtime, and winning in OT. Steph Curry hits a crazy dagger 3 to go ahead and close this one out. He finishes with 33 points, 3 boards, and 6 assists. Just unbelievable stuff from Steph. Jonathan Kuminga has 17 points points, 7 boards. The youth steps up. Steph Curry's looking better after a couple of rough games. And hey, the Warriors are on a 3-game win streak. They're putting things together. Even though Draymond Green is out of the lineup, they've found a bit of a rhythm. Andrew Wiggins still continues to struggle off the bench. But if the young guys are playing like this, if Steph Curry gets back to form, maybe the Warriors are going to return and be a force in this playoff race after all. Super impressed with them recently, and just a big win for them. I'm glad they're finally playing their young guys. As for the Celtics, no KP in this one, but even still felt like a game they probably should have won. Derek White led the way with 30 points, including 7 threes. He did shoot 18 of them, which is crazy amount of threes for Derek White, but I mean, hey, I guess he was knocking some of them down. Ja Morant had 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. Jason Tatum really struggled. He bricked a contested 3 at the end of regulation. I don't know why he went for that shot. He just seemingly refused to go to the basket in the clutch. Really, the Celtics did as a whole. They were just jacking up contested shots consistently. Although I will say when they got to the rim a couple of times, they just missed some bunnies. It was rough. It was shades of the old Celtics offense, the one that continuously falls apart down the stretch. I hope that's not something that creeps up on them when we get towards the playoffs. I think with Kristaps in the lineup, it definitely looks a lot better, but this was not a good sign. Tatum, 5 of 17 shooting, 15 points. Just not his best game. You want to see better from your team's best player. And as a whole, the Celtics let one slip that they probably shouldn't have. Speaking of upsets, we had Suns versus Blazers. Phoenix has been on a really rough stretch recently, can't stop dealing with injuries to their big 3, but they had a chance to go ahead and beat a pretty bad Portland team to get their rhythm back a little bit, and it seemed like they might do that. They won the first quarter by 16 points. It seems like they were going to respond to the struggles by getting a blowout win, a statement. But after that first quarter, they steadily regressed. The ball movement got very stagnant. The defense started to slip. They just kind of got comfortable, I guess is the word I want to go for. And then the third quarter, they got decimated. It's like they came out of halftime asleep. The defense was really bad. There was no offense to be seen. And they end up turning a 12-point lead into a 6-point deficit by the time the third quarter was over. They got destroyed. And the Blazers held that lead the rest of the way, beating the Phoenix Suns, giving them another L. The Suns did try and fight back. I think they were down 14 with about 4.5 minutes to go. But Anthony Simons ends up hitting a dagger, really tough bucket. And now the Suns have lost 5 of their last 7 games, with one of those wins being a very close one over the Washington Wizards out of all teams. They're sitting at the 10 seed right now, 14-13. I know they've dealt with injuries, but when you've got 2 players as good as Kevin Durant, who had a 40-piece in this one, and Devin Booker, you've got to be better than this. The team's defense just hasn't been very consistent as of late. They haven't been consistent as a team really at all. There's these signs of them being dominant, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant being maybe the best duo in the world, and then other moments where they just stop moving the ball. I think they only got up 23 threes in this game. That's unacceptable for a team that has this much offensive firepower. They got to move the ball better. They got to find better shots. Credit to the Blazers for getting this one done. Anthony Simons puts up 23 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. Ayton had a 16 and 15 double-double against his former team. Did shoot 6 of 18, but we won't talk about that. Brogdon had 14 points. Scoot had 9 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists. The Blazers have some really fun talent over there. They're not a very good team, but I think they've got a bright future ahead of them, and they probably will eke out more of these upset wins over the course of the season as they get their guys fully healthy. And finally, we've got Bucks versus Spurs. Unfortunately, this game wasn't as interesting. No Victor Wembanyama in this one, and the Bucks were leading by double digits almost the entire game outside of the beginning. Dame dominates with 40 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals, 7 threes. One of his best games of the season, if not the most dominant game of his entire Bucks tenure. Giannis finishes with 11 points, 14 boards, 16 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block in this one, getting a triple-double and playing a lot more of a facilitating role. The Spurs did a pretty good job on him defensively, but everyone else kind of torched them. Portis had 23 and 10. The Bucks keep winning. You know, they have their struggles. They don't win as comfortably as they should. Sometimes the defense is abysmal, but they're getting wins, and with Boston's loss last night, they're only half a game back of the Celtics for the 1 seed. So as much as they've been really frustrating to watch, they are still getting it done. For the Spurs, like I said, no Wembanyama. Keldon Johnson had 28 points and 12 rebounds. Vassell had 17 points. Zach Collins had a 22 and 8 game. Trey Jones had 14 and 5 dimes. They got pretty good efforts from most of the guys on the team. They're just going to have a hard time on any night beating this Bucks team, especially without Vic in the lineup. Really could have used him defensively, but, you know, not a bad showing from the Spurs young guys. With all that being said, those are my takeaways from these games. Let me know down below in the comments what your takeaways were. What were your thoughts about Ja Morant's debut? Did you know the game winner was coming? What did you think about the Grizzlies with him in the lineup? Do you think they can make the play and make the playoffs? And if they do, if they get some guys healthy, do you think they could maybe pull off a first round upset, or at the very least give a second seeded team a pretty tough series? Would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments as always. I appreciate you all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, stay back.